Well, when the federal government oversteps its powers, states often have no alternative but to take them to court. Multi-state lawsuits against Washington exploded during the Obama era. Now Obama's gone, but is the epidemic of states suing Washington here to stay? To talk about that and the current intense pressure to pass more gun laws, would you please welcome by satellite Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, and right here in the studio, the first woman and first Republican ever elected to be Attorney General of Arkansas, Leslie Rutledge. And let me say, in the interest of full disclosure, Leslie was deputy legal counsel in my office during my term as governor, as well as legal counsel to my campaigns and to the Republican National Committee. It's great to have both of you here. Leslie, let me start with you. During the Obama years, there was an enormous amount of lawsuits that were filed against Obamacare, against some of the EPA overreach. Why did states feel that they had to sue the federal government? What was the basis of a lot of that?
So much of what President Obama's administration was doing was out of control and beyond the scope of the authority that Congress had given them. So, for example, the Waters of the U.S. rule, that would have impacted farmers and ranchers across the United States, a giant land grab. Attorneys general were able to sue and get a stay put in place so that way this administration, President Trump's administration, could take a second look. And it was just a constant overreach by the federal government, whether it was the EPA, certainly the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Department of Labor's rules. All of them were going beyond the scope that Congress had given the federal branch of government, that it should have been the role of Congress.
Let me go to you, Ken, because Republicans sued Obama a lot, but now Democrat attorneys general are suing the Trump administration, especially over issues like DACA. So is this just a political game? Is that what's happening? Democrats sue Republicans, Republicans sue Democrats?
Not exactly, not even close. What happened with the Obama administration is we sued based on constitutional principles of separation of powers. In other words, President Obama was stepping into the role of Congress. In this case, these Democratic AGs are going to federal courts and asking them to overstep their bounds and take on the role that Congress should have. So the roles that have changed with the Democratic AGs doing this, but now they're focusing on trying to find a liberal judge to overrule what a legislature has done.
And Leslie, it seems like the Office of Attorney General in every state has taken on a new level of prominence that it may not have had 10, 20, 30 years ago. Is it because this conflict between state and federal governments and really fighting over the 10th Amendment is what it kind of comes down to?
Well, I think it certainly started during President Obama's term, and the Republican AGs in particular were the last line of defense, because we had Congress who wasn't able to stop this out-of-control federal branch of government, and now the Republican AGs in particular, of which I'm the chairman of, we are the tip of the spear working with this administration. So this administration has invited all AGs to the table, including my Democratic colleagues. And so, yes, the AGs gained prominence over the years because so many people see what can be done when you have an out-of-control federal government.
Speaking of out-of-control government, a lot of people want the government to get more involved in light of the horrific shootings down in Parkland, Florida. 17 people murdered senselessly. But, Ken, let me begin with you. What can government do? And you as an attorney general, what do you suggest that we do to say, let's stop this? I mean, the FBI didn't follow through on its own reports. The sheriff down there, they had 30 different visits to this person's house. Now we find out not one, but 4 deputies stood outside the school listening to the gunshots, did not go in. So, I mean, some of us are saying, you know, we can't wait for government because they don't always do what they're supposed to do.
Well, you got that exactly right. Obviously, this is a horrific crime, but the reality is that these people that are willing to kill others are not going to follow more gun laws. So if we spend a lot of time focusing on gun laws, we're going to end up losing a lot more children, a lot more people. What I would rather do is focus on allowing teachers, other law enforcement officials to help defend our schools, to act first as a deterrent, and second of all, to act as somebody that can actually stop it more quickly than waiting for law enforcement to get to the school.
Leslie, are there any things that you would put forward in Arkansas and maybe encourage other states to put forward that would keep guns out of the hands of people who are mentally unbalanced or who have no business owning a firearm?
Well, Governor, a number of the AGs have been talking, and a couple actually met with President Trump this week. The Attorney General of Florida and the Attorney General of Indiana met with the president, talked about perhaps even once someone is deemed or a threat to themselves or others and deemed so by the courts, then having them lose their rights to have that gun, or at least temporarily stall them from being able to have access to a firearm. Those are some of the things that we've been talking about in our home state of Arkansas, but it's something I think a greater discussion at the legislative level. But again, I think my colleague from Texas is absolutely correct. These individuals, particularly ones who have not been properly diagnosed, if they want to kill someone, if they want to harm someone, they're going to use any weapon. And so we must make sure that those who are wanting to protect these school children, wanting to protect church members, are able to do so.
Ken, there's a lot of outcry saying, well, let's just ban the AR-15, the weapon that was used at Parkland, Florida. Others have said raise the age limit. Does that help? I mean, frankly, I think most people, even those of us who are total Second Amendment people and owners of firearms, would say, if that honestly would protect lives and save kids, we do almost anything. But will it work? I mean, I think what we really want to know is, what can we do that will work? So gun laws, any change that should happen to those?
Look, I don't mind looking at these issues, but the reality is I don't think it's ultimately going to make much of a difference. People that are willing to kill are not going to follow a new gun law. We can try to ban them. They're going to go get them on the black market. The reality is, like, we just had this horrific shooting in a church in Sutherland Springs, and nobody there was armed. It took somebody coming in from outside with an AR-15, believe it or not, to take out the gunman who had an AR-15. So if we had not allowed AR-15s, in this case, we would have had more people dead at a church. So ultimately, law-abiding citizens need to be able to defend when we have these type of issues occur.
Leslie, what's the hardest part of your job?
Hardest part, Governor, is probably not being able to take care of as many people as we want to. We have people call all the time into the Attorney General's office saying, Leslie, these phone calls, they won't stop. And so we're going after those people that are making those out-of-control phone calls, someone who's lost their money to a con artist, but it's really not having the time and resources to help everyone. That we do so much good going after criminals, holding them accountable, and we just need more resources and more great public servants to step up and to be able to help our law enforcement. I think that's been the difficult part of this past week is as we look to law enforcement, we really need to encourage more people to serve in that capacity and to step up.
Well, I hope they will. And I want to say thanks to you, thanks to Ken Paxton, Attorney General of Texas, for joining us tonight. It is a pleasure to have you both. I know your jobs are not easy, and I don't have to get after you because the public already will in the press. So there you go. They'll be after you enough. All right.